And let me
Hi
share
there. Would like to welcome everybody to the Entrepreneurship Institute President's Forum first virtual webinar. Our host today is going to be Michael Synk. A little bit about the Entrepreneurship Institute is the Entrepreneurship Institute is a nonprofit comprised of, there's a whole list of sponsors right there that you can see on your screen. And it's a bunch of different business leaders here in St. Louis that come together to put on events for leaders across our region. Today's guest is a friend of mine, Michael Synk. I've known known Synk, I should say now, for about 4 or 5 years, and personally worked with him with a couple different companies that he's coached through from a Rockefeller Habit standpoint, and looking at how he helps under his Gravitas Coaches platform, helping businesses grow and scale their operations. Today's webinar is going to be focused on what do you need to be looking at, what do you need to be thinking about in your business right now to start getting traction. We've been practicing and going over this presentation, and Synk has delivered, I think this is his 3rd or 4th time delivering this presentation, and each time I know he's made some changes to it. It's got really actionable really actionable information for you to take away today. And so I would highly encourage you to be taking some notes as we're going through this. With that, Synk, I'll let you pick up and rock and roll.
Thank you. If you could just imagine right now the music from Monty Python's Flying Circus. My first quote there, and now for something completely different. That kind of talks about what we're in right now. This is not anything that any of us have experienced before. We've experienced recessions, but not anything quite like this. So the purpose today is to get our arms around what you need to be thinking about to get to the other side of this crisis. The game has changed, the rules are unknown, and they're evolving. That's the key. So we're going to talk about a number of principles and where your strength comes from in getting through this. Who are the experts first? Let's run through the experts you should be looking to for advice. You know, the medical professionals that you know, nurses, doctors, physicians' assistants, respiratory therapists, anyone who's been working at a hospital, they know what the heck's going on about how the disease is transmitted between individuals. And they're right. And you need to heed their advice and follow it. They're not lying. Pay attention. The second set of experts that you have to pay attention, who know more than we know about this, is the public health experts. This Dr. Fauci, and there are others that are reporting in. They know how the spread of a virus occurs. And they've been studying this, and they've been preparing for years. Pay attention, because they know how long this is going to last, and it keeps changing, and it's a changing target, and it's different in every city, but pay attention to what they're saying. Government officials, they are catching up like we are. And my point is they are responding different ways in different states and cities. Take advantage of what they are offering to help you get through this. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that. We're going to spend a little time about how to get started on that. Finally, economists. I have mixed feelings about economists. They understand traditional recessions, but this is not a traditional recession, one that we've seen in any of our lifetimes. This is a disease-driven recession that is we've been forced to change all our behaviors individually on how we live to get through the virus safely. And that's changing economic behavior, and that's what's driving that. And that is different than a traditional recession with a bubble or, you know, just a run, you know, a bull market that's run out. This is something else. There's something else that's going on. And I don't have any relatives that are alive today that have been through the last pandemic. So where is your real expertise? I guess this is my slide of encouragement. You're the expert on a number of things, and you need to leverage these things to sort out your new road forward. You know your business model and capabilities. And you might have to shift your business model, but you know what your company is capable of doing, and you may have to redeploy it, but you are an expert at that. You know your customers and how and why they buy. You should be experts on your customers, or someone on your team is experts on their customers. And you need to play with that expertise. You know your team and who's on your team, the passions and talents, and you know how to lead. These are where you have to move from confidently to get through and get to the other side. So just a brief summary of what the situation is for everybody. There are a couple issues at play, two primarily. As this coronavirus spreads, hospitals are overwhelmed around the world, and small to medium business revenue is dropping and cash is disappearing. It'll lead to two things: people unable to get care as the virus spreads, revenue declines, cash drying up, debt not being able to be serviced. We have to respond the way we are to this virus, but it's causing big changes. There is a lack of trust in our institutions right now, and you've got to remember that as well. But ultimately, this last bullet point, your staff trusts you and expects you to objectively understand this situation and to create plans for them that will protect the business, their jobs, the family, and communities. That's their expectation. And you've got to work on, they're trusting you. It's a lot of pressure, but you can trust them as well because they're in this with you. There are some principles I want to share from business literature that I think are really in play here. I hope a number of you, most of you, are familiar with Jim Collins from Good to Great and about 5 other books. From Good to Great, he talks about confronting the brutal facts and the Stockdale paradox, and the really good companies in Good to Great that separated themselves. They were able to do two things at the same time. Look at the brutal facts, no matter how bad they are, but remain optimistic that they'll get through it. The Stockdale paradox, as it's named, is about Admiral Stockdale. He was a pilot, a Navy pilot shot down in Vietnam, and lived in the Hanoi Hilton for the duration of the war. And what he noticed is that the prisoners, like him, that were optimistic and just focused on the best case scenarios, they perished. Those who were pessimistic, worst case scenarios, they perished. One had too much hope, one had no hope. The ones that survived, like him and McCain and countless others, they knew, hey, the situation's bad, but we got to find our way through this. And that's what we're going to do. You got to find the middle road. The second principle is from his book, Great by Choice, called The 20-Mile March. And all of you in your businesses have been following, if you're successful, have been following some sort of 20-mile march every day or every week. Things that got to get done no matter what happens that week. And the principle of this 20-mile march is there were 2 teams of explorers going to the South Pole, one that survived and one who didn't. And the one that survived, no matter what happened, they traveled 20 miles a day, stopped, rests, did it again, and they survived. The other ones were all over the map on the time and where they went every day. They changed their plan every day. This idea of the 20-mile march, what's been your 20-mile march is going to change. And maybe this is an opportunity, or maybe a better way to say, you're going to have to find what the new 20-mile march is for your business. All of us are, myself included. So the remainder of this presentation is about trying to help you find your locus of focus, where you need to be focused as the owner of your business to find your new road forward. And maybe another way is, these are the things you have to be thinking about, and some of them are not particularly obvious. But this is the thing, I have 6 of them, 6 focuses. We've come up with these focuses from my coaching organization, Gravitas Impact. We have coaches around the world, and a number of them are in places that are further down the path on the coronavirus than St. Louis is. And this is the advice they've been able to give to their clients that is working and helping the clients figure out what to do. So that's where we're going. And at each locus, we're going to stop for questions, or maybe you can share with us things you're doing in this area so that we can share. Brandon's going to be monitoring this, so I can focus on the content, but we're going to bring those up and share them and maybe take time to answer some questions. So the first focus has to be on your health. You are the leader of your organization. And if you print out these slides after this meeting, use this as a worksheet. Write down some things that you need to do to protect your personal safety and your physical health. You've really got to look at your health situation and do what is necessary. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a mental health professional, so I don't want to go much further than that, but you got to get your exercise in, you got to eat right, you got to do your social distancing. The second point might actually be more important. You need to protect your personal mental health. This is an area of incredible strain, whether you want to admit it or not. I'm going to venture a bet that everyone on this phone call as a business owner has had a moment where they broke down. I've had them yesterday afternoon. Okay? Some hints on personal mental health. And this is just general hints, but you've got to start from gratitude and find things that you are thankful for right now. And you need to do that every day. And when I say try to find some service daily, yes, you're serving your people in your company. That's good. I think trying to find someone outside your company in some way or capacity, a relative, a friend, a neighbor, how can you be of service? That's going to help. Also, writing down, what did you do well today? That in spite of things going incredibly wrong and you're being confused, there are some things you did well today. This last one I'm struggling with, something else to do outside of work. That used to be tennis. The tennis clubs are closed. It's not good social distancing to play tennis. It really was a lot. So I'm working on finding what can I do that's not work related. So Brandon, any questions at this point about this, or does anyone want to share what they have, what they're doing in this area?
Synk, I haven't seen any questions posted. I've got a list of questions that I'm compiling based off some of the things that you've shared. So I think as we get to some of the other focuses, I've got some questions for David and some of our panelists that we'll go into.
Good.
Michael?
Anyone on this call, please, suggestions, don't think of just questions, put suggestions in there about what you're doing. We're here to learn from everyone else. David, you were about to say something.
I was just going to say that this is a wonderful slide. The first week, right before and right after the stay in place, the shelter in place was put out there, I was watching the news and social media pretty avidly, making sure that I was up to date on everything, and it was brutal. I mean, it's just bad news after bad news after bad news. So once everything happened and there's some normalcy, I can maybe check in once or twice a day, but staying off of those media platforms and staying off of social media has been a real extremely helpful for me.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the bare minimum. I use most social media to get the word out about what I'm doing and to connect with relatives and friends. But, you know, there's a lot of stuff out there that can drag you right down. And the other thing is we're social people. We're used to seeing a lot of people in the course of the day. Hey, I'm a little bit of an introvert. I admit it, but the isolation has been a lot for me. Okay, let's move on to the second focus. What is your mindset for the second quarter of this year? The mindset has to change. And these are 3 questions you've got to work through for your business. And my suggestion is gather your team, print out this slide, ask them, what do you think is the worst case scenario for our business? What's the best case scenario? What is the middle scenario? Referring back to the Stockdale paradox, talking through this will help you figure out your path. The middle, it's not going to be the worst. It's not going to be the best. You got to figure out where your middle is. And everyone on this call has a different middle and a different worst case and a different best case scenario. If you don't think through what those are and get that into the heads of your leadership team, you are going to struggle with decisions from this point on.
So Synk, I'll add to this from a Go Brand Go standpoint. One of the things we've been talking about from a mindset is a concept of shared sacrifice, that there are going to be times where we're going to win together. There are going to be times where we're going to struggle together. But as a team, we're working together to make sure no one person is carrying too much of the load and no one person is sacrificing more than anybody else should have to. And so the concept and term we're using right now is shared sacrifice, to try and keep a constant mindset of everybody that if you need to be picked up, if you're drained, please reach out. And then the leadership team is spending time every single day making sure we hit people one-on-one to check in with them. David, I know you've, hold on, Mike, I'm going to go to David real quick, and then we'll go to you. So David, I'm curious, what, from a mantra standpoint at Warehouse of Fixtures, right? Your business is all about receiving people and bringing people in. What have you guys done from a mindset standpoint?
Well, it was really important to set a cadence. Michael talked about that a little bit earlier with the 20-mile march. So you have people working at home in an environment that they're not used to, and they're also not able to do the things that they were accustomed to doing every day. So setting a meeting rhythm, talking about with the different departments, setting a meeting rhythm and making sure that everyone understood what they could do and not focused on what they couldn't do. So obviously office furniture is not a big priority right now with people not going into the offices. So we asked our sales staff to just focus on calling their clients and saying, hey, you know, understand you're in a tough situation right now. How can we be of service? Is just talking to them, not trying to sell them anything, not trying to push any product, just being there for them in this time. And I've had vendors do that for me and I appreciate it. So that was big. And focusing on, for example, this $20 chair sale that we're running right now to help people that are working at home. That was a big thing so that our staff could feel like we were doing something to help the community. And other than that, I'm doing the same types of things that you're doing with just calling and checking in on my people on a daily basis. I call 1 to 2, maybe even 3 staff a day just to check in on them, see how they're doing, see how their family is. People are feeling uneasy right now, and as leadership, I believe it's our responsibility to give them some structure and show them that we care. So that's what we're doing.
Mike, back to you.
I talked to a client of mine just the other day, and in a matter of 3 days, they went from about 100 employees at the office to 100 employees spread out at home. And this is a company that was very active at doing the morning huddle, and connecting and helping people figure out their main thing for the day. But after talking to them, what we've decided is that every department head has to do a afternoon huddle that has nothing to do with the business. Just how y'all doing? So 10 minutes to acknowledge the difficulties and the aloneness, what used to be called the water cooler conversations, they've disappeared. So that's important. Thank you. I'm going to move on. Okay. The next thing we really recommend doing, and our coaches in Seattle, China, Australia, and New York have been recommending this. Entrepreneurs, as you know, don't like to do the numbers, right? Well, you don't really have a choice. You have to do some numbers. So our recommendation is take your first quarter or last year numbers, and from there calculate what the next quarter looks like with a 15% drop in revenue, a 30% drop in revenue, a 45% drop in revenue. And then for each one of those things, start figuring the plays you need to make to break even and get through this. Maybe you have enough cash that you don't have to break even, but by being aware of your numbers and sharing these numbers with the leadership team and everyone else makes a big, big difference. You'll discover the plays you have to make and when you need to make them. And you're basically empowering yourself to act with certainty and confidence when needed, and you're doing it ahead of time. 15%, 30%, 45% revenue. And it's do the math. If you don't like doing the math, find the person who does the math, let them do the math, and figure it out. Okay? That's pretty straightforward.
Let's go to the next one, I think.
The next one that I think is important is focusing on communication and leadership. We talked about this 2 slides ago, but you really have to acknowledge your team is worried and perhaps panicked about health, job, how they're going to pay their bills. David mentioned earlier, you're fighting large amounts of social media, and your teammates are. Your staff is mentally overwhelmed right now. It's just because of all the changes. Forget about the disease concerns. Everything is dramatically changed just because of how we're working. That's overwhelming. The disease thing is overwhelming. They're worried about their friends and relatives and the neighbor and whatever. You've got to stoke up the communication more than you ever had. Vern Harnish used to say something, you're not communicating to people well enough about anything unless they start to make fun of you for doing it. And maybe that's a rule for this. The first thing you really got to communicate and make clear is your objective is to get to the other side of this in good shape. Okay? That's the goal for the next 3 months. Life will go on, the pandemic will end, we can start building things again. You do need to communicate what is the company's plan when someone gets sick. Someone's going to get sick. Okay? Talking to one of my clients here in Memphis, it was like, man, the whole workforce could go out because the wife of someone gets sick. Now he's quarantined. We can't get our job done. And then communicate the proactive things you're saying to protect yourself, protect the company and their jobs. And repeat, 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 repeat.
Synk, I'd like to add on to that. I was on a webinar yesterday with some friends of ours, Chapman, over at Chapman & Co. And they talked about how when you're communicating to people, communicating that, hey, we're here to protect people and take care of people. as opposed to, hey, we're here to protect the company and take care of the company, but putting a people first mentality, because the people are the company. So putting that, hey, we care about you, and we're putting our communication about people's safety and people's lives first. Next, I want to go over to Todd. Todd, can you share with us a little bit about how you are managing with your team from a communication standpoint, how you are communicating with your team and making sure from a rhythm standpoint, you're keeping them updated? And Todd, I'm trying to unmute you right now and it's not allowing me, so you'll have to do it yourself, my friend.
Got it. Can you hear me?
Yep, all good.
Thanks, Brandon, and thanks, Synk. Yeah, the last 3 weeks have reminded me that communication is paramount for the team, and as a leader for our team, I've just been reminded about how difficult it is in normal times. And when you have a time like this where everyone is separated, either at home or maybe even in the office, and you can't have team meetings in person, it's really, really challenging. And one of the old rules that I think about a lot is you have, and it kind of goes to this last point, often and repeatedly. If you're not communicating all the time with your team and you go silent on them, they will fill in the blanks themselves. They will tell themselves stories. Most of the time, they won't be right, and they will almost always be negative, because that's what humans do, and we're all human. So you have to make sure that you communicate with your team. And I think the other couple other thoughts. One is, hey, seek out your team's perspective and opinions, and ask them what to do. They've got a lot of great ideas. They've got great minds. You'll really be surprised if you ask them for help. We had a great meeting yesterday on a really important issue that we wanted to communicate with our clients, and we brought a team together, and the team did a fantastic job. And then the last point I'll make is, I think this is a great time. I mean, you should always be communicating about your mission and values, but it's a great time to be reminding people about what is our mission, why are we here, what are our values. And when you're making decisions, put them through the lens of your mission and values, and you'll find that I think those decisions are easier.
That was fabulous advice. I really, you hit the nail on the head here. Often, repeatedly, there's an end game on this. When you were, Brandon, talking about the communication and the people at Chapman, what they were talking about, it just made me instantly think of that thing that Simon Sinek always says, you know, doesn't he really said, treat the people right, the people will treat your customers right. Okay, people first, you know, and maybe you might have to have some painful decisions, but this will pay off for you when you get through this. If you are there for them, they are going to be there for you as you rebuild the company in a more loyal way than you ever imagined.
Yeah, I think the saying that we use is, if we take care of our people will take care of our customers, and our customers will take care of our bottom line. And we're seeing that come through even more now than ever. Taking care of the people first, and they'll take care of the customers. David, I think you had a great point in the message you sent over me of how you're building your communication stack of first is safety, second is cost savings, and third is conserving cash to make it through the next 3 months, which I think is just fantastic. And that takes us right into cash and profitability. Synk, take it away.
Okay, I'm going to run through some basic ideas, and then some of our panelists are going to talk about some specific things, very shortly, some specific things you can do. But it is imperative that you know how much cash reserve you have at all times and where it is. If you did weekly cash flow reports, do them daily. You need to know exactly where your money is, whether it's coming in on invoices, what you have in the bank, what is credit line, what is wherever. Get together a cash reserve report, review it every day, figure out how to take some actions on it to improve it. Second, determine the revenue decline you can cope with. You need to take action. Know what the supply, try to figure out, spend time on your supply chains that are going to impact your revenues. They're up and down, it's a mess. your livelihood, if you depend on supply chains and equipment to resell and things like this, you really got to call these guys and figure it out. I don't have much more advice to you on that. The last thing our coaches have all said is call your creditors now, not 3 months and get through this by yourself and then come back when there's nothing there. Talk now with your bankers and investors and ask them and work with them to get something figured out. This last one's a small thing, and then we're going to turn it over to some people. Keep a separate set of COVID-19 line items somewhere. There's going to, this CARES Act provides lots of provisions for reimbursement of this pandemic-related expenses. If you don't keep track of them now, it's going to be hard to keep track of them later. That's what I got on this. Pay attention to the cash.
Thanks, Synk. So talking about the cash, we've got two SBA expert bankers on as panelists today. We have Steve Grelly and we have Richard Byers. Steve Grelly is from Regions and Richard Byers is from Bank of America, two fantastic institutions here in St. Louis. Steve, I'm going to go to you first. Can you share with us a little bit about some of the cash things that people should be looking at, both from a normal banking operating procedure, but then also from some of the CARES Act that people should be looking at? And then Rich, I think if we can jump to you next after Steve and talk a little bit about the Paycheck Protection Program and some of the other incentives there. So Steve, you first, my friend.
Okay, yeah. So I guess first off, right now cash is king. This seems pretty different from your normal recessions in that normal recessions you don't necessarily know how long they're going to be, but you can usually tell how severe they are, right? In 2008, banks started falling from the sky, right? And you could tell it was going to be something pretty severe. You knew you had to pretty much shed people, batten down the hatches, really preserve cash in every way you could because it was probably going to be a while. This one is quite a bit different, but we don't quite know what to expect, right? So this one's likely to be basically a pause, but during that pause, you're burning through your cash. So cash is king. It's important to look at it both ways. I talked to a customer yesterday that he said he's trying to hold on to his payables a little bit longer, but then he joked that all of his customers are as well. So it all kind of ends up evening out a little bit. But just keep an eye on where the money's going in, where it's coming out. Try to preserve cash while you can now. This seems like it'll be temporary, but we don't know if that's 2 months, 3 months. Hopefully not 6 months. So you got to preserve cash and just really prepare for it. And then I also the open communication with the bank is key. A lot of times we can do things to help you out. We may have some good advice for you. If you're struggling, we don't want you to call us one day and say, I'm going to have to close tomorrow if I don't have payroll, right? We want to know stuff like that in advance, so maybe we can do some things to help you out. So be in contact with your bank. I know we've been calling all of our customers, trying to stay in regular contact with them as well. So all that's really important.
Steve, can you give some specific examples of what you've done for some companies already with interest only and other things you've made available just as a part of normal banking that has nothing to do with some of the government incentives?
Yeah, so in certain cases we've increased lines, we've deferred payments on loans. That's actually something that kind of came out yesterday a bit that we were planning on talking about, but we were already deferring loan payments and things like that, and then the SBA actually just came out, and on the 78504, they are actually deferring payments as well for 6 months. So they realized the need to kind of hunker down and preserve cash right now as well. We're just really trying to work with businesses because we see this as temporary, right? If they were a successful business before this, we're trying to see what we can do and be flexible where we can to help them get through this. Because if we shut off the spigot on them, it's not going to pay us back either, right? So we really got to be there. As far as the different programs, I think you might have. Did you say I'm covering disaster relief or the payroll protection?
Can you cover the disaster relief program, and then we'll have Rich talk a little bit about the triple P or.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So the disaster relief program is a program where you apply directly through the SBA, but we have been guiding a lot of people through the process. So if anyone has questions, I'm sure myself and Rich are happy to help you with that. And essentially, you can borrow up to 6 months of your operating expenses. It's amortized for up to 30 years. It kind of depends on what the collateral is and how long what your cash flow position is. So they're a little bit more flexible if you need longer payments. It's fixed at 3.75% interest. And if you're utilizing that program, they'll actually give you a $10,000 advance right now. And if you're not approved for it, they will forgive that as well. So it's kind of a great way to borrow cash for up to 6 months of your operating expenses to make sure you have enough cash to float for now. Pretty simple app, not a lot of financials, things like that. Their website has been a bit clunky, so you will have to be patient. Some people that got in early are kind of ahead of the curve. Other ones are a bit behind. So, website crashing periodically, things like that. So, be patient, but it's a great program to access quite a bit of capital pretty quickly. So,
And Steve,
right now it's about 21 days.
Steve, specifically with the SBA disaster relief loan, is that something you go to the SBA directly with, or is that something you have to work through a bank with?
Yeah, so that one is directly to the SBA. You can go to the website. It's pretty easy to find if you search like coronavirus disaster relief program. It'll have some information on the program, and it'll have a link that you can go on and apply.
Thanks, Steve.
No problem. Thank you.
And you said a number of 21 days. What was that in reference to again?
And that was from the time you apply to the time you get cash. So those that went early will probably see it quicker than that. As of a few days ago, the SBA said that that's probably around what to expect still if you're applying today.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank
Keep
you.
asking the questions, if you will, in the open question section, and we'll get to some of those banking questions here in a second. Rich, I know you're logged in as a panelist because of different firewall issues, but could you share with us a little bit about the Paycheck Protection Program and kind of how that's set up at a very high level? I know you could talk probably for a half hour, an hour just on that as you've been reading everything, but if you can give us just a few bullets and high level, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Good to go, sir.
Okay, great. Just wanted to go over the Paycheck Protection Program. Just so everyone knows, this is a kind of a moving target right now. There's a lot of change going on. To let everyone know, there is an application that showed up on the SBA website this morning. However, it has already been modified. So the application that is out there right now, it just became available, but it has already been modified from last night. So it's still a moving target. Keep that in the back of your mind as you're listening to this. But the Paycheck Protection Program is directly through the banks. It's 100% guaranteed 7A loan in essence for the bank. In order to qualify, all you need to do is have less than 500 employees. Now that is there is going to be other alternative SBA standards that we can turn to if you do exceed that number. Basically, the way that it's going to work is you're going to take your last 12 months of payroll and get an average for per month, multiply that by 2.5, and that's the number that you're eligible for. These funds can be spent on payroll, they can be spent on rent, they can be spent on interest, mortgage payments, the interest on mortgage payments, I'm sorry, not on the principal, but on the interest. Pretty much anything that you want to, but if you want it to be forgiven, no more than 25% can be spent outside of payroll. So at the end of an 8-week period, the SBA, the unique thing about this program is that the SBA, so they're 100% backed, and they're going to forgive the loan at the end of that period. So it could be at no cost to you because there is no application fee, there is no guarantee fee, there's no personal guarantees, there's no collateral required. This is a really, really good opportunity for almost every business out there. So if you have an interest, definitely reach out to your local banker and make sure that you take advantage of this opportunity.
Rich, I've got a question for you from one of our panelists. Do you have an idea of how quickly SBA will approve applications for the PPP?
We're thinking it's going to be extremely streamlined, and they could have funds as quick as 48 hours.
And then the follow-up question to that was, do you think it's essential to apply on April 3rd? We are hearing the money will be gone on the first day, possibly.
You know, I agree it's going to be important to apply as soon as possible. However, we still, believe it or not, the banks still have not been given a roadmap of how this is going to be rolled out. So it's kind of one of those things where, yes, I think you should apply as soon as possible. You should touch base with your banker, and you should get the information together that's going to be required. But I do not believe that it will all run out day one.
Excellent, thank you. And then Synk, we're going to go for another 2 minutes on this, and then we'll jump to focus number 6. So Steve Grelly, question from the team of, can we include their they have a sales force in 2019, can we include their 2019 income with our SBA loan request?
Are you talking about for the disaster relief program or just in general?
I believe that is in reference to the disaster relief program, yes.
Yeah, so as far as including their income, is that what the question was?
Can we include their 2019 income with our SBA loan request?
Yeah, so
And a lot of their sales force is 1099, and we've had some other questions about 1099.
Okay, yeah, so if you brought someone in 19, you can include their income. It is a little wishy-washy just because the SBA is kind of streamlined things so much. Like, as of right now, they're not really even asking for an amount or anything like that unless you include a schedule. So it's kind of odd how it's set up. I think some of this is still yet to be determined. So we're kind of given the guidelines. So, you know, 1099, stuff like that, there's still costs if you're still paying them, included. But, you know,
So
some of this, I guess, is yet to be determined as far as final amounts and things like that.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve.
Thank
Rich, over to you real quick. From what you're seeing, are the 1099 contractors included for payroll protection program?
As far as I know, yes, you can include the 1099.
Thank you, Rich. All right, Synk, I promised 2 minutes. Let's jump back to you for
Okay.
slide number 6. I know there are going to be a lot of other resources coming out about the payroll protection program. It is a fluid situation, as you've heard from both Steve and Rich. So please be in contact with your bankers. We'll also put Steve and Rich's contact information up and send that out to you guys should you have any questions and you want to follow up with them directly.
Great.
Synk.
I just want everyone to notice a copy of this coronavirus CARES Act summary from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce will be on the resource page of the Entrepreneurship Institute and on my website in Sync with other resources. So let's just keep that in mind. You can get that there. So focus number 6. Up until now, everything we've talked about deals with risk mitigation. And of course, that is a very, very high priority right now. But make sure you're setting aside time to analyze opportunities. Regular time focused on how to grow the business, where you can pick up business, how you can improve things in your company. In a downturn, there's always opportunities for you. So some good advice here is look at your margins, okay? COGS, cost of goods sold, if you can reduce somehow what that is, how can you make it work faster, better, whatever, on delivery of whatever you deliver to somebody? That means you have more cash. and additional offerings. You've got a set of customers. Are there some additional things you can do for them while you got them for the other stuff that's very helpful? Second, increase customers. Now, first on that last thing I said in terms of additional offerings that can help them get through will pay back for you. Second, getting back to this thing about increasing customers, it's a hard sales time, but things you can do to build relationships from a marketing point of view to get you to when they are ready. Now's the time to build those relationships so that when you come out of this, you've got things to act on right now. Another way to get at this, which is kind of a reverse way to get at it, is shorten your cash conversion cycle. And in the resource box on my site, I've put a cash conversion cycle tool there. So, and I'm going to briefly explain cash conversion cycle because a lot of people seem to be unfamiliar with it. It's the minute you start spending money to land a customer is when cash starts running out of your business. So the sales cycle eats up cash. The delivery cycle of your product or service eats up cash. The manufacturing or distribution cost eats up cash. Then you finally get to invoice them, and is that process going well? There's several elements to the cash conversion cycle. Now is an excellent time to see how you can shorten each one of those cycles without cutting quality of service. So if sales takes, this typical sales cycle takes 3 months to land somebody, if you can shorten it to 2 months, you get to invoice a month sooner. If the delivery, we've had examples in our case studies of companies taking 6 weeks to install software. And the reason it took 6 weeks to install software is they couldn't get their act together on getting all the people and equipment at the right place at the right time. Well, if you could focus on that, we've got clients that have moved 6 weeks to 2 weeks on installation. Boom, that's 4 more weeks earlier. You get to invoice somebody. And then you can also look at milestone payments, other ways of billing up front. But the whole idea of the cash conversion cycle is process improvements. And during good times when things are growing, you get sloppy because good revenue and good cash flow can cover up things that aren't done well. So use this opportunity to fix something, learn something, gussy up your business, and those are some suggestions. Okay, we're coming down the home stretch. Thank you for all hanging in here with us. One last principle from Jim Collins that really applies, if you've read Great by Choice, he's come up with a new term that a lot of people aren't familiar with, along the lines of return on investment. All of us know return on investment. Focus on your return on luck. The companies in Great by Choice that really did well had the same amount of good and bad luck as the partner company. No difference. It's how those companies responded to bad luck and good luck that made them great. So how you are responding to this bad luck of this coronavirus pandemic that none of us had anything to do with creating will determine a lot of your success. So think about return on luck. We got a bad situation. How can we get something out of this? Okay. So confront your brutal facts, find your middle road, find your focus, determine the new 20-mile march, create your return on luck, and don't go it alone. My coaching organization has come up with something called the COVID-19 Agile Growth Checklist. And no, it's not a checklist of things you need to do, which are, like a punch list. do this, 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 this. It's not like that. This is a tool for the leadership team designed to keep the issues during this recession, this pandemic, bringing them up to the top. It creates no blame, no shame discussions that surface things. It'll keep you on track. Ideally, you would use it weekly with your leadership team. And the way you use it is before your weekly meeting, or however you're going to use this, is you pull this out, ask everyone in every segment to check off the statements are true. And if you can kind of zoom in or look really closely, I'm just going to show you on leadership. These are the leadership issues that we want to check in with everyone on and make sure we're doing good. And if we're not doing good with them, we've got to figure something out. So the first statement, leaders are applying self-care to strengthen their resiliency. Yes, that's true, or it's not. The Stockdale paradox is alive among the leaders. We're looking at the brutal facts and being optimistic. There's a second in command who is ready to lead if necessary in every leadership position. Is proactive communication with employees daily? And are you using level 5 leadership and return on luck? Those are 5 statements that each person on your leadership team can check off if they're true, and you can talk about why your answers are different than this person's answers, and you'll know whether you need to take action. So there's a set of questions on leadership, on your talent, on execution, on strategy, on customers, on systems, and profit. And you go through this once a week and then tie that to a who, what, when list. This is going to raise up where you need to put additional focus each week. Our clients have been finding it's a very, very helpful tool. This also is will be on the Entrepreneurship Institute site and on the InSync site in the resources, free to download. Take a screenshot. You need to talk to me, hit this. You want to get the slide, hit this.
Thank you, Synk.
And then, are you interested in a business leaders forum for the pandemic? Based on the response I had last week, and I'm sure from today, it's definitely owners feel alone, they're pressured, and they're pressured differently than other people, and you need to connect and understand. I'm going to have a session Friday, and it will take cash flow strategies into a deep dive. There's the link. Email me if you want it. Watch LinkedIn. We're going to send up follow-up emails with links to this to everyone participating. So that's our workshop webinar for today. Hoping this helps everyone get their heads around the challenges in front of them. Not a ton of detail here, as much as how you have to be thinking so that you can create your own return on luck. Brandon, you got any closing words for us?
We do. We've also got a few questions. We've got 4 minutes left, team, so we're going to run through these questions as fast as we can. Chad, you asked a great question about what should salespeople be doing right now. I can tell you, Go closed a multiple $100,000 sale just yesterday, which we were super, super, super excited about. And right now we're really focused on cleaning up our CRM. We're building additional databases for prospects that we're going to now go out after. And then we've been reaching back out to old prospects that we talked to with a whole list of resources that we've been creating. So right now, I think it gives you, what we're directing to our sales team is, hey, this is a great reason to reach out to people and lead with value and not ask for anything in return, but just give, and lead with value. And we're finding it's a great opportunity because people still do want to be connected with. The last stat I'll give you is we work with a company called Sapper Consulting, and Sapper does outbound cold email lead generation. And they had their best 2 weeks, the past 2 weeks, in booked sales appointments. And this is a company that manages over 600 clients and books thousands of sales meetings a week. they've had their best 2 weeks the past 2 weeks because people are home and they're willing to get on the phone. So I would highly encourage from a sales team, now is the time. People are taking calls, people are booking meetings, to get out there. Rich, I've unmuted you right now. We had a question about the payroll protection program. And the question was, does the 2.5 times payroll include employer FICA contributions?
Ooh, I do not believe so. I don't believe FICA is included. I mean, all payroll cost is included, but I'm not for sure about the FICA.
Fair answer. I know things are changing rapidly, so fair answer. If I have posted both Rich's and Steve's email addresses into the chat, so you guys can go ahead and grab those. And then as of yesterday, Treasury.gov updated a whole bunch of information about the stimulus package that was put out in regards to the payroll protection program, as well as the SBA disaster recovery loan. So again, Treasury.gov for some of those resources. With that, I think we've gotten to all of our questions. I just wanted to thank everybody for taking the time to hop on today's webinar. Thank you to all of our amazing panelists. Again, this is being put on by the Entrepreneurship Institute. We will be having a real in-person forum experience next February, barring that there's no pandemic. That is, we have one every year. We pull in hundreds of business leaders from around the St. Louis region. So honored to have all of you on here today. And then Synk will be following up with additional resources. And just thank you, Synk, for a fantastic presentation today. You crushed it, my friend.
Thank you. Everyone, thank you for joining me. Be safe and do well. Have a great day.